Good afternoon, welcome. I'm so glad you've come to join us. And, I can see you much better now. And I'm Nina Simons. I'm the co-founder of Bioneers and an author and social entrepreneur. My people came to this land from Eastern Europe originally, and I'll be your host today for a conversation that's inspired by Judy Baca's mural as part of the World Wall, entitled Better Balance, Imagining Equity Among Humanity and the Natural World. I'm joined today by my beloved friends and esteemed colleagues, Lyla June and Jerry Tello, and I want to first offer gratitude to the land, this land that is sacred to the Tongva and the Chumash, and to the citrus. It's also Biddy Mason land, it's Bronzeville land, and Little Tokyo land. Our deep thanks to Judy Baca and the entire Spark and World Wall communities for the honor of continuing dialogues inspired by your vision and magnificent co-creations. And thank you to the Museum of Contemporary Art, to Alex Sloan and Brian Dang, Amelia Charter and Anastasia Kahn for hosting us, and to the Aileen Getty Foundation, the Kwan family, and Carolyn Clark Powers for their lead support. And now, let's see, now I'm honored to invite Jerry to open us in a good way.
Well, Classical Madly. Good afternoon, everyone.
Do you want me to hold the microphone for you?
Yeah, if you would, that would be helpful. So I'll introduce myself a little bit more a little bit later, but I'll just share with you that when I was a child, I learned from my grandma. She always began in a good way. I thought my grandma was crazy because she'd get up at 4:30 in the morning. Why are you gonna get up so early, Grandma? You gotta go to school, you gotta go to work. No, she'd get up very early in the morning. Probably the only quiet time at our house. We had a lot of kids jumping around and making noise. But my grandma, before she did anything, she gives this teaching by her way is that you always gotta give gratitude. You always gotta acknowledge. You always gotta just acknowledge the blessings that way. And so she would go in that little place in our house with a little hole in the wall with all her sacreds, the candles, the Virgen de Guadalupe, and all her sacreds there. She'd kneel down there. You could almost tell how many problems we had, because the more problems we had, she'd kneel right there for the Lord. But she began, and it was almost like, you could hear a heartbeat. And what my grandma would do is first she would thank her mama. And so on this day, I want to begin just by giving thanks to creation. And ask you to join with me, take a deep breath with me. Because when your mama held you in your stomach, waited for that breath, that sacred breath, and what you may not understand is that sacred breath is connected to all your ancestors. So as we begin today, let's acknowledge all our ancestors, all those that came before, right? All the grandmas and the grandpas from many, many ways that came this way, that sacrificed, that prayed, that struggled, that left traditions, left recipes, left songs, but also left some struggles, right? But even in the struggle, they didn't give up, right? They continued to walk, continued to struggle, continued to pray, continued to persevere because they had a dream. And the dream was that breath and your breath. The dream was you. The dream was I. The dream was these murals. The dream was today. Right? So we give thanks for all those ancestors of all people, of all ways, of all races, of all religions, of all prayer ways. We give thanks in that way. We give thanks for all the nations, of all people, of all ways, and all around the world. And we thank right here in this space we're at right now. As we take another deep breath, we want to give thanks and call to mind all those that are struggling, that are hurting, that are having difficulty. taking a breath, even being acknowledged, even being in a place, even being seen, even being loved, even being healed. We offer energy for that, and that's why we're here today. You know, and we give thanks for all those people that are lending to the healing, to the transformation, to the blessing, to the feeding, to the holding of all those. Anyway. And we end this today, right now, as we begin, right? In gratitude. In gratitude for all of us being here, for this moment, this time that will never be again. We acknowledge Judy Baca and all those that have contributed to the creation around here. And all creation this way allows us to recreate in our bodies, in our minds, in our spirits a new world. So let's imagine just for a moment that new world. Where all people of all races, of all ways, where the land, where Mother Earth and Father Sky and Grandfather Sun and all the wind, and the animals, the two-legged, the creepy crawlers, the feathered, all of them are acknowledged just as sacred beings. In a world and in a place in which all people are honored, all people are sacred, all things are sacred, all our relations are sacred. We give thanks in that way. Take one more deep breath. And let go when we say, Blessed and blessed is. So, thank you.
So, to explore the world wall, a vision of a world without fear, together at this time when fear and hatred are so ascendant, is a courageous and necessary act. The world wall asks us to step outside of the limitations of our culturally conditioned minds and to instead invest ourselves in the desire and imagining of our heart's visions. It invites us to remember and re-sacralize our core relatedness to all who came before us, to our ancestors, and as well as to the future generations of our species and to the offspring of the entire web of life, who are our kin, as Jerry was naming. As Judy Baca has long understood, for any future vision to be animated into life, to be manifested into humanity, into reality, it must be the embodied work of many hands and hearts, visions and voices. It must be pluralistic and collaborative and co-created and arise from the land that gives us life and holds our memories. Also, permeating the airwaves, the mainstream media mostly is covering the bad news. It's covering the stories of violence, of corruption, toxicity, and destruction, with little or nothing about the world that's being born, the one that we're working toward, co-creating or envisioning. So it's become far more difficult to envision the world we want than our eventual destruction. It's so vital to do this now, for without a future vision, how can we possibly find our way and act together on behalf of illuminating and calling into being the future we all so dearly want? When we dream, vision, and act together, we can illuminate and call into being what the Zapatista movement of Chiapas describes as a world where many worlds fit, a world where many worlds are possible. My own reflections on balance and this mural, this beautiful mural, are first from nature. I recall the dynamic equilibrium of the elements' engagement with each other and the eternal two-step dance of the moon and sun. In envisioning balance, the mural depicts the sun, center of our system, as a fetus, a seed of life itself, cradled in the arms of a loving mother, surrounded on both sides by generations of loving lunar reflections. The grandmother that Jerry was telling us about. As I ponder how our society has gone so off the rails, I've been drawn to seek the root causes of our entrenched patterns of violence, toxicity, greed, and inequity. The way I see it, sorry, need these for reading. The way I see it is that the imbalance of the feminine and the masculine, archetypally as well as individually and societally, lies at the core of our culture's most profound harms, crises, habits, and challenges. The Dutch primatologist Frans de Waal reminds us from his studies of chimps and bonobos, our genetically closest living relatives, that regardless of our temporary gender assignment, we all contain potentialities of collaborator, nurturer, and empath within us. And also, we contain aggressor, competitor, and dominator behaviors. In primates, the alpha male is actually the one who breaks up fights, not the one who starts them. And he may also be the one to adopt and nurture an infant that's lost its mother. From China's ancient spiritual traditions, the yin and yang together represent wholeness. They are presented equally, balancing each other, and each contains the essence of its complement within it. Among the Haudenosaunee, who are also known as the Iroquois Six Nations, among our continent's eldest intact cultures, people of each gender, with flexibility for two-spirited peoples, have equal authority over different realms of community life, but they have full respect for each other's perspectives and purview. As Oren Lyons, faith keeper of the Onondaga Nation, puts it, we are the Iroquois, where the men are men and the women are too. The elder women of their longhouse select the male leaders for their clan by observing them closely as children, as boys at play over time, to see which of them has the qualities necessary for good leadership, which boy may be most sensitive to the needs of others, which may be willing to sacrifice for the good of the community. The elder women also have the authority to rescind the leadership of a man if he's not doing a good enough job. Their model of gender equity inspired the suffragette women's rights movement that emerged from Seneca Falls after the white settler women visited their reservation and witnessed how the women of their society were treated with dignity and full equality. For me, the serenity and right relationship that's embodied in this mural's vision and its contrast to life now evokes a revelation that I had when I discovered the burning times. It was a period in European history between the 14th and 17th centuries, which has had correlations in other nations and peoples throughout the world. It was a time when 7 generations of children witnessed their mothers, sisters, aunties, grandmothers, healers, and midwives systematically hunted, tortured, and burned for the supposed crime of being witches. It was the first time in my life that everything I had learned from pioneers about the most pressing challenges we face as a human species came into focus within the context of one lens: the devaluing and demonizing of everything associated with women and the feminine, and the validation and celebration of a dominator model of hypermasculinity. It was also the first time I understood where my fear of speaking my truth in public might have come from. I could feel that the trauma of that time in history lived on in my bones. And women, the life givers and life bringers, and the earth herself have come to be treated as commodities, to be used, extracted, and exploited. And now, with the science of epigenetics proving that the effects of trauma can be passed on intergenerationally, I believe that fear and bias lives on in the DNA of everyone alive on Earth today. For me, that's what this vision of a future without fear inspires in me: the rebalancing of feminine and masculine, lifting the wisdom of our hearts to lead and to nourish the interrelatedness we share with every element, plant, person, ecosystem, and creature with whom we share this sacred home. The essential ingredients we need to heal, those I believe we most need to cultivate for rekindling those sacred connections, include discomfort and resilience, a willingness to meet these challenges with fierce honesty, perseverance, and resolve, and with respect, reciprocity, ritual, and reverence. Thank you for listening. And now, I'm going to pass it to my friend Lyla June for her remarks.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm very grateful to sit beside both of you, to sit amongst you all. We have a younger sister who's supposed to be here today. She couldn't make it due to just not feeling well, so please keep Nalleli in your prayers. So I'll introduce myself first properly. Greetings, my kin and my people. Okay. Greetings, my kin and my people. My grandmothers taught me to see everybody as my people, no matter what language they spoke or where they came from, or what color skin they had. I come from the Nalleli clan, which is a clan of the Dene nation. We are also incorrectly known as Navajo, but that's not our real name. That's the name that was kind of plastered over us by colonial society. We are Dene, which just means people. And then Nalleli is the clan, which I got from my mother. In our culture, you get your last name from your mother, not from your father. And so that's my #1 clan. But my second clan I honor is my father's mother's clan, which is the Tsessis, or the Southern Cheyenne clan. She was from Anadarko, Oklahoma. Aro Ashihe is the Salt clan, is the third clan that I honor, my mother's father's clan, which is his mother's clan. The Salt clan of the Dene. And then my father's clan is the last one I honor, which is the European clans. Scottish, Scandinavian, probably other stuff I don't know about. But I'm trying to find out. I come from Taos, New Mexico originally, and in that manner I present myself as a Diné woman. So first of all, I'm just so grateful we have the time to share this space together. I'm so grateful for the work Judith Baca has done. As I walk around, I mean, it's just stunning. I saw pictures of it, you know, but it's completely different in person. It's like a whole other glorious, like neon experience that I'm just very deeply appreciating her work and her vision and her audacity to have a dream and to create it and to work as hard as she did to make it happen in a belief that something could come through her, you know, a belief that something could be born through her and through her community to help others. And I'm glad that we get to put words to this today to some extent. And as I think about our topic today, this topic of balance, it's been on my mind a lot, mostly ecological balance and always gender balance. But it's been on my mind a lot looking at the research I've been working on and a lot of the native land management techniques that we had that were all about co-creating balance, ecological balance, but also ecological complexity and diversity. So like balance also being hinging on complexity, hinging on difference, hinging on a celebration of this kaleidoscope of expressions of life, you know. We need that, and that's the way Creator made it, you know. But then I think about balance, you know, being more of an outgrowth than the goal. Because to me, the goal is actually purity and discipline, which then gives rise to balance. In other words, I don't want to have a balance of love in my heart and hate. Like, there's literally just no room for hate. I mean, there is plenty, I can do it. I've done it, but I don't like it. And it doesn't help. So there's this purity of love, you know, which is kind of monocultural in a way. It's just monochrome, maybe you could say. It's just love. Then giving birth to and giving rise to a diversity and a complexity of balance. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about this purity and this discipline. Who knows if it will be helpful, but maybe it will be. But the purity that I was taught is this idea that when we do something purely for others, we become vessels of something greater than ourselves. And that we are all vessels. You know, and I like this one mural. It has the eyes of the women watching the men with the candle walking. She has vessels in their eyes. You know, and this was supposedly representing the heart in many cultures. And this notion that we are vessels, meaning yes, we are here, but there's also stuff moving through us. One of the old prayers of our elders and our ancestors was, "May I be a hollow bone." This notion that we're just here to have the Creator's song flow through us like a flute, and that we are mere flutes. We're not the music, you know. And this word of the word genius having that root word genie, which means spirit, you know. And so the genius was not someone who was so great or so smart or so talented. Actually, quite the opposite. It was someone who gave themselves to the beauty and the talent of spirit. And if you look at our old songs, none of them say, "Oh, copyright Lyla June 2022." None of them say, "Oh, this was written by tall woman in the year 204 AD. You know, this is songs that we understood did not belong to us. They came through us. And so what I was taught is that in order for that song to come through us, we have to be pure. And of course, none of us are pure, right? But in that moment, we have to want something for someone outside of ourselves. That's what I mean by pure. We have to not do it for the self, not for money, not for fame. And that our societies were crafted and designed to help each person get closer to that state every day. Our cultures were cultures that prioritized humility, generosity, kindness, and we had competitions, you know. Still do in some parts of our communities where it was like, who could be 2 minutes ago? I asked them to help me because I could just go on forever. Where the competition was who could be the most humble, who could be the most generous. And you never wanted to fight for the front of the line because you look like a fool, you know? Like, who's that lady? Or who's that guy? Who's that person? What are they doing? And so this notion of wanting to be connected to our vesselhood, to me is what brings about balance. When each and every person is dedicated to that discipline, dedicated to that craft of honing their heart to be a flute, to be something that isn't a service, is a gift to others, then not only do you have balance, but you have wealth, communal wealth, flourishing that we cite here in Chumash territory, where we know through archaeological evidence they were fishing for abalone for 11,500 years straight, without end. They never ate all the abalone in 11,500 years. And guess how many abalone there are now? Very few. Less than 1% of the oyster population remains in Chesapeake Bay. And so it's not just balance we reap when we have this purity, this discipline, this generosity, humility, and outward facing looking to be for others, to be for the earth, to be for the water. Not just balance we reap, but we reap incredible beauty, complexity, diversity. So, yeah, I think the last thing I'll say is that this culture that we're in now, as we all know, pushes people towards selfishness, pushes people towards fame, towards money, towards that wanting spirit. And as soon as we fix that, we'll fix it up. According to my elders, it's an easy fix actually, and we'll learn very soon why it's important when we run out of water. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. That's beautiful. So I want to begin just by thanking Creator, you know, for this day, and acknowledge my ancestors, starting my mom's family is Tarahumara Mexica from Chihuahua, Mexico. My dad is Tapilan Coitecan from, was originally known as Yanaguana, now known as San Antonio, Texas. So we have our native Mexican Texan, you know. For many years, my dad would never say he was a native. He said, I'm a Texan, you know. Couldn't even say he was Mexican because that wasn't good either, you know. So he said, I'm a Texan, and he always wore a hat and talked loud, and, you know. My dad came from 15, you know. And my mom came from a smaller family. She had 14. So it's not like we don't believe in family planning, we just plan big, right? Check out the demographics now, we're growing, right? We make more kids, and you gotta pay attention to us. We're all around, you know? They met and had 6 children, and there's different stories about why they met and all of that. But the work moved to Los Angeles, so we moved here, and I was actually raised in Compton and in Watts. So I'm straight out of Compton, straight out of the barrio there in Compton, black-brown neighborhood. grew up in the 50s, 60s, and you know, relatives, my parents' family, but it was not uncommon on a Friday night to hear and go to the doors, one of your uncles and aunts, and you gotta look happy like they're there. Oh, come on in, yeah, we're happy to see you. I know we're gonna feed you, but come on in. And you know, and I say all that to say that, you know, in that neighborhood that I grew up in, that you hear stories and you hear, you know, you look back at Compton and Watts at that time, civil unrest, civil rights movement, Chicano movement, there's all kinds of stories about that. But there was sacredness in Compton. There was sacredness in that neighborhood. And I saw these grandmas, these abuelitas, in spite of all of this stuff, in spite of the violence and the injustice, and you know, we didn't even have grass in our parks. We go 2 miles over to the middle class white part of town, and they had beautiful grass. You go to our parks, it's dirt. You know, in our stores, we didn't have healthy food. You know, but in spite of that, my grandma got up every day and gave gratitude. She gave thanks. You know, and I couldn't understand, you know, how living in, you know, and my grandma, you know, and at times we didn't have nothing to eat. Beans, only beans. A big bag of beans. I complained, why do you God, Mom, can't you make something else? I always got beans. Can't you make other, people have other, why can't you make something else? I'll be quiet. I ought to be glad you have something, but can't you make something else? My mom said, kneel down, or what? Ask for forgiveness. About what? Complain about beans. I'm sorry, God, complain about beans. And she was, there's kids in other countries that don't have nothing. We have beans. You know? And I'll tell you what, I miss my mama's beans today. See, with those beans, my mama and my grandma created balance. The world didn't want to see us, didn't want to acknowledge us, didn't want to treat us in a just way, wanted actually us to disappear. But my grandma, my mama knew we belonged, knew that this world could not be complete without the medicine and teachings that we brought, that our ancestors brought. And the larger teaching in all of this, what I've learned from those elders, I've been able to sit with and have taught me and scolded me and held me and made me accountable, is that there will not be peace. There will not be harmony or balance in this world until all our relations are acknowledged and respected. And I'm not just talking about people, I'm talking about Tonantzin, Mother Earth, and Tata Sol, grandfathers, the wind and the water and the two-legged and the four-legged and the creepy crawlers and even the skunks and the stinky skunks. You know. Got a place, got a purpose. So we know the teachings that way. You know, we know those teachings. And in my indigenous language, there's a term called Encloque Nahuatl. And that word Encloque Nahuatl meant interconnected sacredness. Right? That there will never be actually sacred until you really acknowledge it can be. And see, I saw my grandma do it again as a kid, learning these Western ways that only certain things are valid, or only you should do things only a certain way. I thought my grandma was crazy. She'd get up and go to the garden and talk to the plants. Buenos dias, good morning, how are you doing? How beautiful you are. Oh, you look so, my grandma's talking to the plants, she's crazy. Why is grandma talking to the plant? Oh, you look so beautiful. You know, te voy a dar un poquito agua, I'm gonna give you a little bit of water. If I could get your permission to take a little bit of this. Because my grandson is sick, I need to make a tea, but I'm gonna give you something, and I'm gonna take something. And my grandma acknowledged the plant before she took anything. Acknowledged the beauty, asked for permission, gave, and then the reciprocity. And that plant healed us. The sense of our interconnection that is based on everything in this world. You know, and we saw a teaching right here in front of you. And I'm gonna call her my niece. My niece came up here and held this mic for me. Powerful teaching. Oh yes, I was doing the prayer, but she was giving me voice. She was amplifying what I was saying. And if she didn't hold the mic, you wouldn't have heard me. Larger teaching in our culture that everything comes from the feminine. And I hear men say, well, I'm the head of the house, yeah, but she's the neck, and you can't move unless that neck moves. And the neck is connected to the heart, the children. Main arteries are right here. So men, don't get it twisted just because you think you're the head. So with that, I want to acknowledge my partner, my wife, Susana, who is home right now making me some good tacos and beans and rice because it's the anniversary of my birth. But before, they called me and asked me to speak, and I said, well, I know Judy, and she's such a pioneer and elder. I want to do this for her, but, I got to go ask my wife, can I go? And my friends are like, well, why are you asking? Because she's the center. She carries the medicine. She is the heart. And I've learned that in many, many ways. But I also learned it by seeing the pain in relationships and communities when women are not honored. In my role as a psychologist, I've seen the imbalance of violence, domestic violence, sexual assault, all of these things, and the harm that brings to all our relations. And the lesson that I have learned is we will never have peace and balance unless the feminine, the women, are honored and respected. So I have to live that and learning that, and I want to thank my niece, right? I'll call her my niece because we are related. How do we live together in a good, honorable way? How is it that we respect and honor that? And it's difficult because I still carry the messages that I learned in Compton, where I saw, my people, my African American relatives, beaten, brutalized. During those Watts blowouts, I saw National Guard come and set up tanks on the corner of our house. Me and my friend Tyrone walking to school, and they cocked the AK-47, and we're like, oh shit. We tighten up. We're gonna shoot up, what's gonna go on? Man, should we go to school? My mom said we're gonna go to school. We're walking to school, the whole way to school, I'm worried, I'm tight, talking about fear. Get to school, my leg's shaking, I can't pay attention, I can't listen, I'm worried about my mom, what are they gonna do? Are they gonna get us? Fear. Sometimes fear is a teacher, it's not bad. Makes you pay attention. But sometimes what I needed to do just to be in school, just to sit there, is I needed to remember my grandma's prayers. I needed to remember that she says you're a blessing just the way you are. And that's why those traditions, those values, those songs, those traditional ways of everybody's culture are so important. Because when the imbalance comes, when those things we call racism, oppression, inequity come and face you straight up, of course, the naturalness, one wants me to front up and act like I'm incompetent and say, we're gonna do this, fool. But I know if I go there, it's not gonna be good. Oh, I can handle myself. But I wear this medicine bag today, because in this medicine bag is something for my wife, for my children, my grandchildren, for my relatives, and I know anything I do is gonna affect them all. So any action that I take is not about me, it's about them. It's about what my ancestors have prayed into me, but it's also about what will come forward in 7 generations. So the sense of balance is complex, but it's also very simple. honor your relations. And in my Mayan culture, there's a term called enlaquech. Enlaquech means, tú eres mi otro yo. It means, you are my other me. That you're my relative. That when you hurt, I hurt. When you struggle, I struggle. But when you heal, I heal. And when I heal, I'm better able to be compassionate and open with you. So I can sit with you so you can heal. See, and my daddy didn't sit me down and give me these teachings in this way. He taught me in a very, my dad was a hard, loud talking man. Hey, Miko, oh my God, what's the matter with you? My friend said, your dad, man? I said, that's what he talks all the time. But we go to visit relatives and we get in that Buick, right? My dad's Buick, and back then before the seatbelt laws, you could take all your kids with you. So all of us got about 8 or 9 of us, right? One of us lay on that window spot up there, sat on my sister's bony knees, put the baby on the floorboard, and my dad would cruise. But his parenting style was he would scold us before we did anything wrong. And that loud talking about, when you get to la casa tía, when you get your aunt's house, remember when you walk out that house, before you run and play, you hug and kiss everybody. It took half an hour to get in the door, right? But my daddy was teaching one of the most fundamental teachings in life. You acknowledge everybody. Everybody. I see you. I honor you. I walk with you. I am you. And we haven't even got there yet in this world, in this country, in this society. And we can look at people and acknowledge them and see them as a blessing, as sacred, as necessary. That's where balance begins.
Oh, thank you, Jerry. Thank you both. I want to open it up for some conversation. If anyone has thoughts, questions, ideas you'd like to kick around, reflections on what landed in you. Why don't we just take a moment and either close your eyes or take a look at the mural behind us and just give yourself a chance to take it in, to feel what it feels like in your body, to imagine yourself in that landscape. See how it sits with your heart.
As we're doing this, I really want to acknowledge again Judy and those others that created this, because in order for them to put these images up there, they had to take themselves there. They had to be there. They had to go through that sacrifice, and it brings us to that other teaching about balance. It takes sacrifice. You must be willing to be uncomfortable sometimes in order to create balance, to create connection, to create conversation, or to ask a question. They have a mic over there if you'd like. Anybody want to share a reflection? What came to you? What did you, as the three of us were sharing, any thoughts, any reflections, any questions that you have?
Hello, my name is Arnold. Me and my wife had stopped by earlier, but we were really interested to hear the point of view, especially about the stories of the works presented. It's very beautiful, the colors and expressions that it's shared. And one thing I want to take is an inspiration to create a sense of community, because you are right, fear is always there. But when you have your community, when you have created a sense of bond, and I see a lot of these pictures with multiple people, and it's like such an inspirational thing to take home, at least for me. We come from Chicago. Create that sense of community, join a food pantry, join a volunteering team, because that is where we will be. That is where our community needs us, And that's where we can start sharing that sense of love, that sense of equality for everybody. So thank you so much. And just want to make that brave comment about me being inspired by the works. Thank you.
That's a beautiful reflection, you know. I often think these days that we're in a transition from a me culture to remembering that we're really a we culture. And that, you know, for me, knowing about the fragility of what's going on in the world, and water and food and the economics and war and the whole 9 yards, the only thing that feels like it really holds me is the community of people I know, who I know see and love me, and will hold me, you know, and really that's where we need to be focusing our attention, is on reconnecting in that way, because there's so much need, and it does feel so good to show up for other people right now. Thank you for that. Anyone else? There's a mic crossing over your shoulder.
This is a little bit uncomfortable. Jerry, you referred to her as your niece. I'd like to challenge you to consider Nina your cousin. Nina is my cousin, but we're all related. We're all humans. And you talk about your black brothers, and working towards inclusion and belonging and community. And I've heard you speak at Bioneers, at the Bioneers conference, and so I know you know Nina very well.
Yeah, she's my sister.
Okay, all right. That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
He came on his birthday because I invited him.
Come on. We're talking about relation, come on.
We love each other. We got this. No, but you know, it was so beautiful how Lyla just immediately sensed he needed a mic holder, you know, and went and did it.
Because I've been in that situation.
Because you can't hit a drum and hold your mic at the same time. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you all so much. Jerry, I was really impacted by how you said, you are the other me, or what was it exactly?
You are my other me.
You are my other me. That's something I've kind of felt throughout a lot of my life. I grew up in Canada, where it's very common on the street when you see people to acknowledge them. And I think it's something that I struggle with day to day, of how do I acknowledge other people on the street? I went to New York and nobody looks each other in the eye there. And I found it kind of liberating in a way to think, nobody cares about me, I don't have to care about anybody. And then I came to LA and I think how some people want to be looked at, some people don't. What do I do? I'm always figuring this out. So I'm kind of wondering your perspectives. How do you go about day by day in terms of really, do you look at people and think you are the other me, or how do you navigate that in this world?
You know, it's funny, I might be weird, but I just love like opening the door for someone, or like strangers, the cashier at the store, and I'm like aching for these little opportunities to just like connect, you know, or show compassion. But then I went to Mexico, and they're all weird too. I was like, oh, this is so nice, you know? Like when you pass someone on the street, always, if it's morning, it's buenos dias. If it's afternoon, buenas tardes. If it's the nighttime, buena noche, you know? And there's just this constant like connection. Random people on the elevator, buenas tardes. Like this cariño, this care, this fuzzy, warm fuzziness. And I was like, oh, it feels so good. So I don't think we're crazy. I think there are places where that happens. And I also don't think it's our fault as Americans that we've lost that, because to Nina's point, you know, the burning times when my European ancestors, grandmas, were being burned alive, drowned alive, tortured, and on and on. 2,000 years of open warfare that our European ancestors went through, of insanity, torture chambers. I mean, it was a third of our continent dying overnight with the bubonic plague. You start to develop a war culture, a hoarding culture. I better get this right now because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow culture. And that, from my Dene side, is a coyote just hurting people. Hurting them until they become his instruments. And so now we're in this situation, right, where we're in this culture that is predicated on slavery, predicated on the genocide of indigenous peoples, predicated on capitalism, profit maximization. And we're in this exciting opportunity to show love in a dark time. And I think that's one fun thing about it, is we get to keep being those sparks everywhere we go, and seeing others as our other us wherever we go, whether it's in the airplane where you're just like, I catch myself in the airplane like, I hate this, you know, but then I think, no, these are my people. All these rows are my people. I don't know where they're going or where they're from. Let's say a prayer for them. And then boom, you can feel the energy shift in the plane, or at least in yourself, and probably in the plane too. And so yeah, I think we're not crazy. I think that's a thing that we feel, and it's hard to do it in this context where it's so cold and impersonal, but it's also all the more beautiful when we do it. And I think MLK said, only when it's dark can you see the stars, you know? So that's one good thing about darkness, is the stars are very noticeable. And so we got to bring that out more and more, I think.
Thank you for that. You know, I feel the question of the reality of today too. You know, when I grew up, we would greet, and you would greet, and you had to greet everyone. But understanding, you know, the complexity of the oppressions and that this world has brought to many people, and the woundedness, right? I also grew up then later on in the neighborhood, or if you looked at somebody the wrong way, it's like, what's up, man? Would you look at her? You know, it's like, so you got to be careful to look, right? For women, I also recognize that, you know, that if you look, let's say, at a man and hi, how you going? It may carry a different connotation, right? That being said, it doesn't mean you don't acknowledge, right? So I have been with people, and I could tell they're not about greeting, and they're already looking at me in some kind of way. And you know, we talk about prayer. I just offer a little blessing to them, a little prayer, a little whatever. And it doesn't mean I don't acknowledge them. I see people and I acknowledge in my spirit, in my heart. I say, you know, good morning, relative. I just do it in my heart, and you know, and I've acknowledged people. How you doing? And they just look at me like. You know, so I, you know, and the reality is, you know, I travel a lot. You know, not now, not the last 3 years, but I speak all over the place, and I've seen the opposite. You know, I've walked on a plane, wanted to sit in the exit row, talking about a plane, more leg room, and I'm walking on, and I point to the exit row, and the flight attendant says, "Excuse me, do you speak English?" And I'm like, oh my gosh, you know. And the whole plane like gets quiet, like immigration's gonna come and get me, and then my stomach tightens up, and I remember the 1,000th time that's happened to me, and it triggers so much stuff in me, and I'm back in Compton. I want to kick that. I mean, that's where I want to go, but I know what's gonna happen, so I have to go to my grandma's prayers and recognize I don't need this lady's acknowledgement for me to be okay. But I learned how to navigate that, and I said, well, did you ask the other 5 people in the row? He says, well, I'm gonna do the FDA right now. No, did you ask them before they sat down? Well, sir, you don't have to get violent, you don't have to get security. And I gotta get a presentation because 1,000 kids are waiting for me to speak to them. And I said, no, ma'am, can I sit there? And it reminds me of what my daddy and my mama and many, many elders have had to go through. You know. So even in that, I sit down and I say a prayer for her. Right. That's the balance. Right. And I get to my presentation and these youngsters are waiting. And that's the blessing. Because when I talk to them, they come up to me and say, we've never seen anybody speak that looked like us. That told us that we could be successful. And I said, Creator, I get it. I had to get through that in order to get there. I'll do it again. So, you know, it's complex sometimes. It's not cut and dry, but it doesn't mean you don't stop doing what your grandma would want you to do.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to add one other dimension to this. It's such a good question. Because I find that I am always reminding myself about how diverse people really are. And that some people really want to make eye contact, and some people really don't. And some people are comfortable with that intimacy, and some people are more comfortable being touched or not, or being heard, right? So I try to, as I'm navigating the world, listen with my whole body to see who people are and how they may or may not want to be connected with. And to sharpen my own sensitivity to appreciating all these different ways of connecting. And that, I mean, as my siblings and cousins have said, right? I remind myself often that what we see and intend and pray actually has power, and that people can feel it. And so, you know, as Jerry was saying, and as Lyla was saying, when you connect with somebody through an intention, they can feel it. You don't have to make eye contact. And one of the things I love to do, I actually live on the edge of a national forest, and I walk in the woods with my dogs, walk me twice a day. And I pour love through the soles of my feet into the earth. And I ask for her forgiveness. And I tell her how grateful I am for her holding me. And it's deepening my devotion and my sense of that connection, because I do it every day. And the more I do it, the more I can feel it, you know? And so that's another way, you know? Yeah. We have time for one or two more questions. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for this conversation. My name is Carolyn. I didn't know when I came here today that I might have an opportunity to talk about something that's been on my mind, but I wasn't raised religious really at all, but I come from, you know, European ancestors, mostly Christian, I guess. But I think there are folks who don't regard me as spiritual because I don't have religious practices, and I don't worship something supernatural, but I really revere and admire cultures in which, you know, we're related to the rocks and the streams. The bear is our brother, the spider is your grandmother, and she sits on your shoulder and tells you what to do. I love that. And so I feel like, why do we have to have something supernatural when the natural is so completely profound? It really suffices for me. So to turn this into a question, I wonder if the three of you have anything to say about some kind of distinction between natural and supernatural, or the importance of acknowledging a more mystical creation story. I respect them all. I just don't worship it. What I worship is something extremely earthbound, and I feel like I have a lot of sympathy here for that.
I know we gotta finish in 10 minutes, so I'll try to be brief because my Theo has his own birthday party to attend. But the first thing that comes to mind when you're speaking, which I really appreciate your question, I appreciate all of your questions and comments, is that the way that English divides natural and supernatural, I think in Dene culture we would just call all of it natural. Because the unseen world is still natural even if you can't see it. And it's what imbues and arguably gives rise to what we can see. And so the unseen realms are much easier to tap into when you've been introduced to them in a positive, loving way. When you're introduced to them in a punitive, judgmental, patriarchal, denatured way, I mean, who wants to connect to that, right? So I was very fortunate growing up to be introduced to the unseen realms through ceremony, which I feel like is a great privilege that very few have these days. In this case, it was Lakota people, which I won't go into the details as it's not the right place or time, but suffice it to say, it's very beautiful ceremonies they have, where they teach the children about the interconnection between the natural and supernatural worlds, and that they are one and the same, and that our breath is a good metaphor for that. You can't see it, but it gives us life. And it's not us, yet it moves through us. And so I think that I also completely understand why you're revering these things, because that's what makes sense. It's creator's creation. And so I understand all the way around the table why certain people see things certain ways. Yeah, I guess I would just say that don't give up on the creator yet, he or she or they or whatever the heck it is, I don't claim to understand. They might have some things to share with you someday.
Well, yeah, the thing that I would offer is to say I was raised without any religion too, and what I discovered was that my relationship to nature was what fed me, and it was what always made me feel peaceful. And then the more I learned that, scientists have just discovered that the mycelium under the ground respond to sound, and the sound that they respond to most is the low frequency of drumming. And so when our ancestors did their sacred seasonal rituals, the mycelium were listening, right? The plants, they've now discovered, plants can see color. Plants can tell if you're wearing red or blue. I mean, there is this level of awareness and consciousness throughout the natural world that to me is the most sacred thing I could imagine. And so I think of Mother Life as my deity. That's who I want to be in service to. And that's who I want to be as hollow a bone as I know how to be, to let her come through me, because she has 4 billion years of wisdom. And talk about an elder, How could we find one any better than that? So I'm with you. And I just think we're all indigenous to Mother Earth. And so it's not a far reach to talk to the plants. And the plants must have been happy and made good medicine, I'm sure. Do we have any last questions, or do we let Jerry go to his birthday dinner? Oh, Annika, okay.
Sorry, I don't have a real question, I just have a comment. Thank you so much. In relation to the mural behind you, which that Judy Baca created the sun as a female symbol, to me is so incredibly powerful, because I've always thought of the sun as this kind of masculine thing, and I'm related to the moon because I'm a woman, and to turn it around, the power of turning that around and seeing birth there, which of course the sun participates in. So I just wanted to say that mural is incredible, and I'm very glad I got to be here. Thank you.
Yes. Want to join us in singing happy birthday to Jerry?
Yes, my favorite song.
Okay, ready?
It only comes once a year for you. Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jerry. Happy birthday to you.
Sharing your birthday.
Yeah,
with us.
yeah. Can I, since it's my birthday, can I share a song with you? Yeah. Can we share a song with you and share a song and kind of bless you out with this song and thank you and you know, because I think as Nina said, you know, the vibrations, you know, music, drum, song, vibration, and balance creates, you know, I mean, it comes from vibration. What kind of vibration do you carry in your voice and your walk and your attitude and everything? You know? So I just want to offer this song, really, just kind of a blessing song this way, and you know, thank you for good wishes for my birthday, but also just thank you for you, you know, and just recognize that you're sacred just the way you are. You gotta do nothing, you gotta learn no more, you're just the way you are, right? In all your entities. So let me just offer this. Hey, hey, oh. Hey, hey, oh. Hey, hey, oh. Hey, hey, oh. Donan sing. Hey, hey, oh. Etata sol. Hey, hey, yo, hermana agua. Hey, hey, yo, hermano viento. Hey, hey, yo, enana luna. Hey, hey, yo, enclo que nagua que. Hey, hey, yo. Hey, hey, yo, hey, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo. Class of my Lord, back to the middle of your soul. Thank you.
Thank you.